Was there a person who mentored or encouraged you when you were young?
Well, my parents were wonderful mentors and very strong on getting a good education. And my dad was busier with working with sick people, but my mother spent a lot of time getting to know the teachers, and she was PTA president. And in spite of our school, Grant School, was about 30% African American, probably the highest ratio in Waterloo, and the teachers were chosen I think they were actually asked if they minded teaching black children, but most of the teachers that came really wanted to. So we got some extraordinarily good teachers, especially in some of the social studies and in literature and music and the arts. So I had a good education in grade school.
How have you been involved in the African American community in Cedar Rapids?
Well, a lot of it's through my husband's patience, but there are people that I've gotten to know because my mother, as I told you, went to high school here back in the early 20s, and so there were old families who'd been here when she was here. So that was sort of my early connection. The Smith family here, Phoebe and Vernon Smith, I had known all my life. I'd known him, I hadn't known her because I didn't know her till they were married, but they were immediate friends and have been good friends of mine all these years. So I don't know if you know them, but he's no longer living, so yeah.
Was there a particular...
I'm Catholic, so I didn't go to a black church. That's one thing I didn't have, that connection, which is good to have.
Was there a particular event that caused you to be involved in the community?
We came here when he graduated from Howard in 47, that's high school. 57, he interned at St. Luke's, that was a year. And then he opened his office and started practicing. And a number of other doctors were encouraging him to stay here, so that was, but the patients didn't run in a big crowd at first, but he had the we had the luck of the house that they gave us to live in when he was interning was on a avenue. I've torn down so many things over there now, it doesn't look the same, but he was right across from the hospital. And the nurses knew that we were there, and if they needed somebody quickly in the emergency room, they often called him because he just had to come across the street. Emergency rooms weren't quite as organized as they are now. They weren't quite the same thing. And that gave him a good start to getting patients because they liked him. And so when he started practice, some of those same people became patients. And so he worked here, he just retired I don't know if you know my husband at all, he retired in 1999. So he was here practicing from, let me get my dates right here. Let me come here. I have to think about when people were born. The twins were born here, right? And they were born in 50, when he was interning, so 58, I guess. Well, we had a big problem finding a house. After my husband's intern, we were looking for a house. We were living in a house that was owned by St. Luke's as an intern. They had houses for interns with families. And we were over on A Avenue, and we started looking, and most of the real estate people wouldn't even show us a house in a mixed neighborhood. But we were close friends. I'll try not to make this too long. It's a long story. My daughter is making a documentary about this story, so it's going to be, she's the Armstrong family became friends. Mr. Armstrong had a department store here. It's no longer downtown. That was, and he wanted to help us. He was giving a lot out on Beaver Avenue to his church as part of the donation, St. Paul's Methodist, and he wanted us to have the lot. And so there's a story about it. You can get the old newspapers and read about it. You could, but there was a lot of objection from people, some of the people in the neighborhood, not all of them, and it was quite a little fight. But we bought the lot and built a house.
How have you expressed change in the African American community in Cedar Rapids? Experience change in the
African American community. Well, there's change in every community. You mean just the kids? You mean, or adults? You mean, so are you trying to...
the community.
Just the community. Well, since the 60s, there's been a lot of change everywhere because the laws were changed, so that it was no longer, you were no longer restricted from doing so many things. There was a very active group here. A lot of them were NAACP people, but there were people from all over the community who were working to get rid of this segregated living, and a lot of people who were trying to help us with our house too. It was a human relations committee, a group from Marion and Cedar Rapids that worked to do that. So, but the movement that was going on in the whole country affected us here too. We had demonstrations. A lot of us. I didn't give as many talks as my husband. He was quite active as a speaker. He'd go to small towns in Iowa and speak, try to make people see why they should not be prejudiced. And we had a thing going on during that I did help with, because we opened our homes to mixed race, sort of like a tea thing on Sundays. We had an exchange, and you would have 2 or 3 families of another race. Usually we would have a white race, and we did quite a bit of that. I can't remember what we called it, but that was all going on in the 60s. I was on the Human Rights Commission too, which is different now. It's not like now it's a Civil Rights Commission, but we were pretty active.
What are you most proud of in your life?
Well, my children would probably have to be number one. I have 12 kids, so I have a lot to be proud of. I'm proud of the fact that I went back to school after mine were almost all finished, and not really intending to get a degree, but I became interested in the Russian language and was taking it at Co, and then Co dropped it, so I had to continue. I had to either go to Cornell or go to the University of Iowa, and a friend of mine. It's a long story. I'll try to. I know I'm talking too much, but anyway, I decided to try it. So I went down to Iowa City. I was afraid to drive on the highway, so that was one of my big problems. But I started down there in the fall of '88, just to take Russian. I wasn't planning to get a degree. I wasn't going to do that. And my advisor there looked at my transcript with the courses I'd taken just for fun at Kirkwood or Co or someplace, and she said, "Why don't you just put all that together and get your degree?" So I ended up picking up courses that I needed that I hadn't really planned to take, and I graduated in '93 at the age of 62.
Thank you.
So I'm proud of it. Sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Harris, for this interview and all that you have done for our community.
Oh, well, I think you probably have too. But thank you for talking to me, taking time to talk to me. It's always nice to have someone interested in what you've done.